a place that I've dreamed of, where I can free my mind. I hear the sounds of the season and lose all sense of time. Feels like we're in a dream, you know what I mean.
Right there, Camp McIntosh.
Yes, it is Camp McIntosh, and that is all the information you need in order to get your butt booked in a bed. It's going to be another great year up at Camp McIntosh. Really looking forward to it. We are probably about 2/3 full right now. So as I said, do not delay. Make sure if you are interested in trying the unique fishery, perhaps maybe you've never fished this part of Georgian Bay in the French River before. Maybe you just want to experience something different. Camp McIntosh ticks a lot of boxes. We'd love to see you there. Love to have you up there. As I said, it's going to be yet another great event, another CFN retreat. Going to be in the books. Well, happy Monday to everyone. Hope everybody had a great weekend. As I said, it is winter. No matter where you are in the country, it is winter. And we are hopefully going to start reaping the rewards of that, seeing lots of great videos and footage of folks out on the ice. Jim and I will talk a little bit about some of the folks that are finding their way through the ice and why we have to constantly revisit the issue of making sure that we are doing what's right, because I'm starting to see a very scary trend. It's not a matter of just ignoring the hazards. It's about ignoring them altogether and actually boasting about it. That part needs to change. So Jim and I will be talking about that. Lawrence is with us as well. And, of course, Jason Barnucz will be our anchor leg. As I said, always an honor, always a pleasure to have you folks along. Tony, nice to have you with us. Steve Shaw's in the house. How you doing, Steve? Lloyd's with us. What's the temperatures out there, Lloyd? What are we looking at? Are we looking at minus 20 out there just yet? I know it's going to be cold. I've heard minus 30s being tossed around, so I'm looking forward to all the ice it's going to make, but who wants to be out minus 30? How you doing, Adrian? Nice to have you along with us. Brad's in the house. Yeah, baby. Rick's with us. How you doing, Rick? Nice to have you along. James is here with us as well. Fish Shimano, Abs, freaking lootly. Richard Dunlop as well. I didn't upload the link, but we're going to be posting that on Friday. It's going to be something that we're going to feature. What we are going to be doing, which is long overdue, is legitimizing our membership, making sure that folks that truly follow CFN are signing up. And there's a reason for it. We want to make it worth your while. And we're going to do so with many of the vendors that are part of our Made in Canada tackle platform, namely right off the bat, Pal Casting, as well as Pal Plastics that you saw with the ad in the very beginning. So we're going to make it worth your while to register yourself as a CFN member. And again, there's many reasons for us wanting to do that. And here's the best part. It's free. It costs you nothing. We just like to have those who are involved, that when we are going and presenting ideas of gaining, coupon codes, discount codes, maybe even, a possible store or three. You walk in and, the store either you have a card or he's able to give us a call and say, is this a CFN member? Yeah, legitimize it. Boom. You get the discount or the sale or whatever it is that they are offering. But we want to gear it more towards the online aspect. And we certainly want to incorporate the Made in Canada vendors first. So Richard is spearheading this, and we will make sure to share that link with you. We will have probably giveaways as things move along, as we get to certain levels of our membership. And again, this isn't just to gain traction. We just want to make sure that folks that are truly following CFN, we want you to get an extra little bit of value to go along with it. So join us, because it will be something that I think we're all to be really proud to be a part of. How you doing, Bruce? Nice to have you along. Daner's with this. Yeah, baby. There's Pete talking about the minus 30. Yeah, it's definitely going to thicken up some ice. Absolutely. Gary's with us. How you doing, Gary? Nice to have you along as well. Sonia's here. Eve, did I hear that you may have injured yourself? Did I hear that correctly? If you did, buddy, our thoughts and prayers are with you. Hopefully you're on the mend, or maybe I just got that wrong. George, happy Blue Monday. Great tune. Tim Bravo's in the house. How you doing, Tim? Nice to have you along. Eric is in the house as well. Saw your question in the group chat, in the legacy chat. I will make sure that I get to that answer as soon as I possibly can, Erica, so that you are aware, like the rest of us, who to support and who's supporting us. Riley's in the house. Nice to have you along, Riley. That's a decent fish. Look at that pike. Ooh, son. Very, very nice. What's going on? I don't know who you are. Alvato Fishing. I'm going to assume you are overseas. Perhaps maybe you are with us. Tell us who you are. Alvato Fishing. Tell us who you are, brother. Nice to have you along. CFN for the win. Thanks, Riley. I really appreciate that. Grandpa's Tackle Box. There is what I'm talking about right there when it comes to Canadian vendor. Wink, wink, nudges. So, yes, lots happening. Lots going on. Again, not so much to discuss outside of what we are discussing here tonight. One thing I did want to bring to your attention, we did repost it. Those who have qualified, I made sure that I tagged you or tried to tag you in the post. But we want to see your first fish of 2026. The post is up. It's on CFN. There's actually 2 posts that have been made. The other one is soon to expire. The one that just came up on the weekend, I think it was Friday that I shared it. Make sure if you do have a first fish pick of 2026, post it. Even if it's a video, post it. Love to have it. Love to have you qualify because we got a really cool prize pack to give away. So stay tuned. Yeah. Oh, you caught my pinky finger taking off. Yeah, that's painful. Yikes. It is so cold. I saw the politician. Imagine that. Imagine that. 12 inches. We have 12 inches of, I can freaking imagine. I can't even begin to imagine what they have up in the far north, if they've had to put the extensions on, if it's that kind of weather or not. But depending on your snowpack, there's a good chance that you're going to be gaining an awful lot of ice this weekend with the temperatures plummeting like they are. But without further ado, again, there's not much else to talk about. We do have some announcements coming up from the North Channel Walleye Open that I'll be sharing with you folks, as well as some of the upcoming shows that CFN and the Made in Canada platform is a part of. And we have some very, I would say, thankful, appreciative, and excited vendors that are going to be a part of those 2 shows that would never normally have the opportunity to do so. And this is truly what Brad and I are very, very proud of, is we're somehow getting an opportunity for vendors that wouldn't even think of having a booth at either the Ottawa Boat and Outdoor Show or the Toronto Sportsman Show. So we'd love to have you guys along. Again, without further ado, let's bring in Big Jim because we got to talk about ice safety.
When he was born, he tried to reel in the umbilical cord. Bass named him as their personal best. His power pole came with a stripper. Forward-facing sonar uses him to find fish. Chuck Norris is his co-angler. He is the most interesting fisherman in the world. Stay fishing, my friends.
So something I have to share with you folks. Jim is struggling right now, and I know he wanted to come on here and bash Bell. He has no Wi-Fi. We had him up and running just prior to going live, but it would appear that he is no longer with us. So with that, and now he's come into frame, let's bring in the one and only Lawrence Gunther. How you doing, Lawrence?
Good thing I'm paying attention, eh?
You know what? Kudos on you for doing so.
Well, thanks.
We got minus 30-degree weather. It looks like winter is here. If you weren't sure or you're hesitant to believe, it's here. and ice fishing is going to be something that everybody's going to be doing very, very soon. Lawrence, are you going to be one of them?
Oh yeah, winter has been in Ottawa for 6 weeks.
Exactly.
Like since the beginning of December, we've had snow in it. It's never gone away.
Boom.
Yeah.
Now, more importantly, have you been out fishing? Have you got a chance to get out?
Yeah, a couple of times on the ice.
Nice.
And, but then we had that. I had a plan to go out, and then we got that rain, and water levels rose and went up on top of the ice. And I'm not a big fan for getting the family out and standing around in 6 inches of water on top of the ice. No one appreciates that.
No,
it
agreed.
just gets wet. So I pick my moments when I bring them out, but we're working on again a group to go out and catch some smelt. That's going to come up soon. And Tom Cod is happening out on the St. Lawrence. That'll be happening soon. So there's got a few adventures stored up. That's
awesome. We are always lucky and honored to have you folks along with us each and every week. As I said, typically this would be a segment that I'd be talking to Big Jim in regards to ice safety, something that I wanted to bring Jim on to talk about, but I'll talk to you, and I think it's something that if given the opportunity, we should take every opportunity to talk about it. I don't know what it is, Lawrence, and maybe you have been watching some videos, perhaps you haven't. Very concerned at a trend that seems to be starting to take flight, if you will, and I'm starting to hear it mentioned in a few of the influencers when they do their videos, talking about, I know, I'm on unsafe ice or I'm on thin ice, and it's very difficult to land this fish with such thin ice. And then we start to see some of the folks dropping through. I don't know. Based on what you're watching,
flotation suits? Is it? They all have flotation suits now, so it's a bit of a.
Well, I don't. You know what? Let's not even get into the detail of what they're wearing, because I think that only makes it worse. And I'm serious when I say that. But I saw a video that I shared with Jim that was absolutely horrifying. In fact, the ice was so thin that I couldn't even tell how thick the ice actually was. It looked paper thin to me. He was not hovering over top of the hole for obvious reasons, because it was obviously thin. There was lots of water on top of the ice. It was a beautiful trout that he had caught. But dude, there's not a chance I would feel comfortable on that ice. Not a chance.
Yeah. I don't know what people are thinking. People see someone go out and they think, well, if they're out there, I'll go out there. If they park there, I can park there. There's a trail, I'll follow it. We're all like little lemmings in some ways, right? We're just looking for someone the first one to go, and then we just follow the tracks, and we lose our minds. And I was listening to a guy. He's one of the leading sort of mountain runners and off-road runners and mountain climbers in the world. He climbed Everest twice with no oxygen. I mean, he's just a tiny guy, but he's got his muscle to fat profile is really, he's got the best in the world.
Okay.
And he says, you got to watch out for euphoria. He said, euphoria, getting all excited, you lose your mind. You lose your mind when you're really tired and exhausted. And we know that. We all understand, when you're really tired, you make stupid mistakes. But he said the opposite is true too. When you get really excited and you lose your mind, you don't think straight. And then later on, when you start to come down off that euphoria and you look around and you think, oh my God, what am I doing here? Like, what the hell did I just do? So, we gotta keep your mind, gotta keep your, not get bent on out of shape. You want whatever substances. You got to keep your mind around you, your wits around you.
And it is 100% true. And of course, we were all young and we were all stupid and we all did things that, we probably shouldn't have done. Sonia brings up a great point in regards to, again, this isn't to browbeat or beat over the head the young people of today, because we all did things that we weren't necessarily proud of. And these kids are just following suit. But I think, the underlying thing, yes, it's important to make sure that we are emphasizing the message that we are continuing to carry forward with the importance of making sure that you're on thick enough ice, not necessarily safe ice, but thick enough ice. And we are able to identify what is unsafe and what's not. With that being said, the easiest and most effective way for us to try and get the message through to the influencers is not be influential ourselves. So in other words, and I think, Gary mentioned he saw the video, and yes, I did see a heater as well, Gary. I don't know if it's, I want to think it's somebody in Canada, just based on the fish that they were targeting and the fish that they caught, and of course the background and scenery and what have you. Don't like the post. It's real simple. You don't have to leave a comment. You don't have to say, you should know better, or, what kind of message are you trying? We're not police, women, men, people, persons, whatever you want to call it. We're not here to enforce folks. We're just here to educate. But part of that education is unfortunately ignoring or turning, a silent shoulder to those who are posting that kind of stuff. And I know it's easy to like, and I know we sometimes want to support folks that are the next generation of anglers, but I think we're doing ourselves a huge disservice if we are liking or supporting stuff that we know is wrong.
And that's, really, people who need those likes, who want to be those influencers and get to the top of the algorithm, or at least onto the algorithm. It's got to be pretty extraordinarily weird, right? I mean, so you got to be really pushing it to get into the algorithm these days. It doesn't matter, have common sense. That's not going to get you there. You've got to be doing something really, really bizarre to get the
so
algorithm.
And Craig Minch puts up the best comment here, because and let's face it, that's the reality, Craig. Views equals money, and if you're an influencer, this is what you want. What we have to now say is, we don't want to influence, nor do we want folks to prosper about stuff that is putting them in danger and potentially other people. And really, the brands themselves have to take a stance too, because we have too many people out there that we can't get to. We only, like right now, we have 21 people watching this. They're usually the typical 21. They know better. They're the ones out there, like us, trying to educate this, that, and everything else. So the message only gets so far. Mm-hmm. But when a certain somebody in our community that I sort of hold in a high regard doesn't like a post or doesn't share a post, and typically they would, I'm taking a mental note. I'm saying, okay, yep, this is probably why they didn't follow, and it's probably someone that they follow. The troubling part for me is that video was shared by a lot of folks in our industry, in our angling community, that I see as problematic, because we're just sending the wrong message. But that's my take. I don't know how you feel.
It's jackass, right? People that they made it famous to go out there and do stupid things. Put yourself at risk, and you make some money, and you make some laughs, and you'll make yourself well known. And if people want to have their time in the limelight, and they'll get it whatever way they can. We're all normal that way. We all want that to a degree, right? Or 15 minutes of fame. But I'll tell you, to risk things like that, maybe you got a flotation suit, maybe you got some pics, maybe I don't know, maybe you got a bit of safety gear, so you feel like, oh, if I go through, I'll be able to get out, no problem. But then you got to think about the rescue and the other people that are going to come if you can't get out, and what's going to happen then. You're going to put other people at risk and tying up valuable resources just so you could get a internet moment.
It's true. George, speaking of internet moment, George actually only follows and supports the channels where they actually fall through the ice. I see a very dark world in George's. No, I'm just kidding, George.
That's in German they call that Schadenfreude, where you take humor from other people's disasters.
Well played, Lords. Well played. I love that. Speaking of something else that is dark and well played, this is something that was shared by one of our provincial ambassadors, Mike Robertson. I know you can't see it, Lawrence, but what I'm going to describe here and talk about is something that I mean, if I didn't have the credentials shared with me, I doubt I would believe that this is real. But that is a sturgeon, and it's called the Leviathan of the River, It's a giant white sturgeon hauled ashore in 1896. This is a classic historical photograph of a massive white sturgeon that was caught in the Columbia River in the Pacific Northwest, dated 1896, a time when the river teemed with legendary giants during the peak of the late 19th century commercial fishing booms. The image captures an enormous specimen, likely exceeding 24 to 26 feet in length and weighing well over 2,500 pounds.
Wow.
This
wow,
historical,
wow.
with historical accounts from the era reporting white sturgeon up around 2,700 pounds. This was carefully hauled into a muddy riverbank in the shallow flats where it was taken, where the picture was taken. This is interesting, and I'm going to see if you're able to answer this. White sturgeon were once incredibly abundant in the Columbia Basin, prized for their meat, oil, and especially caviar, which fueled a short-lived but intense commercial boom starting in the 1800s. Giants like this were commonly trophies in an era before what?
Well, I was going to say industrialization, but I know the commercial fishers who harvested those fish in the 1890s, early 1900s, they used portable steam-driven winches.
Yeah,
like they didn't reel these things in by hand. They had winches that reeled them in with steam engines. So it's pre-industrialization, is it, or pre-internal car combustion engine? I don't know.
It's interesting, and I had forgotten about this because we always think of it on the eastern side of the country. But fish like this, enormous fish like this, and there's a steamboat in the background. That this fish is probably, well, I mean, judging by the picture, it's like the same size as the boat, but clearly it's not. Craig, great question. Craig Mitch said logging. Yep, logging, that would definitely make sense. But more so than that, it was the fish like this were on the regular before we started damming our bodies of water. And they said once the dams went in, fish of this size and of that caliber were very, very rarely seen. But think about that, Lawrence. Like fish of this size, this is possibly a 25, 26-foot fish, was on the regular back in it. Can you imagine?
Yeah, well, those are fish that live 150 years, and they also know that these fish routinely move back and forth between the Columbia and the Fraser River. So they actually go out in the ocean, swim down, and go into the other river, and then come back again. They get around. These fish get around. That's pretty cool, right?
Well, you think of it. If that tail were to just whip left or whip right once, I can't imagine how many feet, if it was still water, this fish would travel, because that's the size of a mainsail, at the back of this fish. That thing's huge. The tail alone is massive. Sonia, great question. What would the size of that head be? I don't even want to know. You definitely need two hands to lift it. That's about all I could say. But truly awesome, Mike. Thanks so much for sharing this picture, as well as the little bit of 401 behind the scenes stuff like that. I love seeing old pictures of that like that. Just for no other reason. It's great to know where we are, but it's even better to know where we came from. So cool stuff. Now, speaking of old news that is new again. There was a news article that was just posted that I thought of you immediately, and it was in regards to the fish die-off back in 2019. There's some new findings.
Yeah, well, that happened in the summer of 2019 on the Ottawa River, downstream from Ottawa. There's a little tributary that feeds into the Ottawa River, and on that river, there's a hydro generation dam. There's a paper mill, and there was some concern that what causes fish off. So it was detected by an angler on the river who saw these dead fish coming out of this tributary and going into the Ottawa River and being swept downstream. Took a bunch of pictures, sent them to the Ottawa River keeper, They were shared with the different government departments: Environment, Climate Change Canada, Ministry of Natural Resources on the Quebec side, because they came out of the Quebec side of the Ottawa River. So there was some jurisdictional wrangling that went on who's going to investigate and who's going to step on whose toes. There was a sample collection issue that happened, because no one had equipment. And I interviewed the head scientist for Ottawa Riverkeeper after the first or the second kill. There was 4 kills over a 4-week period, 4 different kills. And they had no capacity to collect water samples or fish samples. They never had the equipment to do it. You can't just go out there with some, old yogurt containers, and you got to have sterile equipment, and otherwise the samples won't be, you couldn't submit them in court. You have to have proper equipment. And so there was no samples collected at the beginning, but over 2,000 fish died. And after the wrangling was sorted out, the Quebec government took control, I think, said, we'll look into this. And they issued a report saying, the hydro dam was, they were cleaning some of their turbines, and they over-oxygenated the water during the cleaning process. And these fish died of excessive oxygen. And I talked to a leading fish biologist here in Ottawa, and I said, what do you think of that? And he goes, oh, that's just crap. That's just crap.
I have to agree. I don't, but yeah,
that was crap. But how do you come out? No one's going to say that. And, if you don't have evidence, how do you prove it?
Yeah.
Then I talked to another engineer who worked with the paper mill companies as a consultant. And he said, they use a lot of bleach to, whiten the paper in the paper making process. And at some point, the bacteria that they're killing to whiten the paper becomes resistant. So they have to get rid of all that bleaching agent and then clean the tanks and then introduce a new variant of the bleaching agent. And hopefully that'll work. And if that doesn't work, they have to get rid of that and try it again, something else, and try it again until they get something that works again. And it's a process. He said, that's a lot of chemical going in and out, a lot of barrels of chemical. And can be all documented, because, these paper mills, they document when it's coming in, and they should document where it's going when it's leaving. So that he told me about that, and he said there's probably a linkage there. I'm saying this could be alleged, but here we are 7 years later, and Environment and Climate Change Canada lays, I think, 12 charges of dumping this bleaching agent into the river over a 4-week period. The Ottawa Riverkeeper jumps on when they see that post come out last week and says, there you go, there's proof, now we know what caused the fish kill. 2 days later, the Riverkeeper is retracting that, because an Environment Climate Change Center said, we know they dumped the chemical into the river around the same time that the 4 fish kills took place, but there's no evidence that the fish actually died from those chemicals. So they were charged with dumping the chemicals, but no charges were ever laid so far for the over 2,000 fish that died.
And Lawrence, I really appreciate the background story on this, but there was an astronomical settlement figure that was shared in that article.
1.4 million. Apparently, it's a chemical company that has $1 billion revenue. So 1.4 million is not the end of the world for them, but it's a sizable fine. And one of their agents, who, probably the fall guy, was fined $15,000 for not reporting the dumping in a timely manner. They say it took them 5 days to report it, but it went on for 4 weeks. So I don't know. What do you believe, right? Look,
well, this is the thing.
They pleaded guilty, so there's no court date. So there was some back and forth. No doubt there was some government, involvement in terms of, picking on different companies on either side of the Quebec-Ontario border. There was some of that national wrangling going on. But you know what? Good for Environment and Climate Change Canada for saying, you know what? We don't give a shit. You're all part of Canada. You dump shit into the river, you're getting a fine. And a $1.4 million fine is nothing to sneeze at.
No, in fact, I actually thought it was a little bit more in the article. I thought it was closer to 3, but needless to say, the figure is astounding. Given the fact that a lot of other stuff is swept under the carpet and dealt with differently, as we've seen over the years. This was something that it seemed like it obviously gained enough attention. There were enough eyes on it that they knew they had to do something. But obviously, they got instructed by their legal counsel, and they said, "Listen, just plead guilty, so that we can put this to bed. That way, we don't necessarily have to divulge all the details because you're owning up to it. There'll be a figure associated with it. You'll have to pay that. Most likely, it goes through insurance. But at the end of the day, whether it's alleged, whether it is a convictable offense, whether they pled guilty, even if they were innocent, or if they were guilty and pled guilty just to get a lesser fine and sentence and whatever else, we'll never know really what happened, will we?
No, because it didn't go to court. So the evidence was never presented in court.
There you go.
They admitted to dumping the chemicals on the 12 or 13 times over the period of 4 weeks during that summer. That's what they admitted to, and that's what the fine was levied against. So, I think the biggest, I find, it's wrong. Why did they dump the chemicals? They don't say. Was it an accident? Was it intentional? They don't say. Yeah. And I don't know. But just think about it. Maybe, and I'm just speculating here, maybe they were thinking, oh, what are we going to do with all this stuff? We have to pay to have it hauled away as toxic waste, and that's expensive. When we know we can just shoot it into the river, it's going to go right into the Ottawa River. It's going to get, by the time it gets in the Ottawa River, it's in there for 3 or 4 hours. It gets all distilled and dissolved and broken down, and it's no longer deadly. Maybe they knew that, and they thought, we'll just take a chance, and not knowing that there were so many fish in that small tributary just below that dam that was their habitat, and now those fish would die. But they did it 4 times. There was 4 separate fish kills over a period of 4 weeks. So it was in the news. So you had to be stupid if you didn't see it in the news, and you kept doing it. But maybe they didn't know, and maybe where did it happen? Like, where were these chemicals put into the river, and why? Was it part of some sort of other industrial project? Maybe paper mill question? I have no idea. But you think about that, and you think about these. You put yourself in the shoes of the people on that river, who have property on that river, who they're drinking water from that river. Like, all the communities along that river pull water out of that river and clean it up and drink it. Yeah. And you're thinking, for 4 weeks, this is like terrorism. You're thinking, man, can I swim? Can I let my dog into the river? What happens if he eats one of those dead fish? Who's going to, here's what the instructions were. If you have one of these dead fish float up on your shore, put on some gloves, take a garbage bag, put the fish in the garbage bag. They don't say, call us, we want to come and collect it. They said, put it in the garbage. Put it in the garbage bag and put it in the garbage. That was the instruction. Bury the evidence and make sure the animals don't eat it, whatever, get the sting, but no information. This is, don't drink the water. Don't boil the water. It's unsafe. Don't swim in the water. Don't let your dog swim in the water. Don't eat the fish that you catch in that river over this period of time. No instruction.
Does that sound, I'm asking everybody here, does that sound like a country that we used to love? Does that sound like how a country that we used to love acts? Does that sound like a country that we used to love looks after its people? No, man. Like, if we're dumping stuff in a river, and Steve says it best, I just can't believe industry think they can still get away with this stuff. I can't believe that this is even a thought. I mean, I suppose if you don't know where your drinking water comes from, or you don't care, maybe you're not an angler, and you have no vested interest in fish or clean water or getting out in the water or any of that stuff. At the end of the day, it brings me to my next concern. Great that we police this now. Great that we got ahead of this now, and we were able to deal with it, and obviously issue whatever fines and charges that we did. Alleged or not, we obviously laid some charges, and they've stuck, and they've held, and they've had to pay a fine. What does our next generation of land stewards and water stewards look like? Have we got a young up and coming group of young, full of piss and vinegar potential lawyers out there that are grooming themselves to make sure that they're adjudicating environmental law, that they're getting ready for corporate law, so that not only can they defend corporations that are wrongly accused, but also those that are rightfully accused? Like, what does the playing field look like 15 years from now, Lawrence? Like, is this all going to be in vain? What do you think?
You look at the beginning of the river keeper movement, right? Where did it start? It started in the Hudson's River, just near Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
There's 3 guys fishing, and they were night fishing, and they noticed a fish kill, and they saw it a couple times. So they went out themselves. They took samples. They took water samples themselves. These 3 anglers in their boat took water samples, some fish, and forced the government to press charges, to investigate. Mm-hmm. And that company that was dumping the chemicals into the river at night when they thought no one was looking got charged, and it was a big charge. And these anglers went on to motivate advocates to start the water keeper movement, which became water keeper and river keeper, and they're all over the world, right? All over the world. And they're there to sort of watch over and safeguard the river, to make sure stupid things aren't done because people aren't looking. People are looking. And it has to start with the people who care. Like, these are the people who live by the water, who live on the water, right? Yeah. Us.
Yeah, no, it's very true. And you know what? Tony brings up a good point. It depends on who made the decision to dump the chemicals. Natural-born Canadians wouldn't think to do this. I wouldn't think so either, Tony. I would have to agree. I mean, let's face it. If you were someone that was brought up like I was, you take pride in what your front yard looks like, your backyard looks like. Do you groom it properly? Is there garbage all over the place? We take pride. There's an ownership there's a pride of ownership that's part of all this, and I just hope that continues, because at the end of the day, we are going to need the next generation of anglers, not to be just great anglers, but to be over and above stewards for the very waterways and environment that we are enjoying now. Because I don't know what kind of upbringing these folks have. I know folks in the north, they love to get out in the outdoors, and it's part of their lifestyle. It's part of their culture. So it's inherent to make sure that you're not doing things that are going to damage that, because it's something that you truly enjoy. Here in the city, maybe it's not the same. Maybe with new Canadians, we're not getting that message. I don't know. This is all spitballing, but at the end of the day, I certainly hope that we've got it figured out, because I hate to say it, but there's a good chance that we're going to be faced with more of this stuff if not.
Well, for sure. I think, if I'm quite often following the news releases from Freshwater Future down in the States on the American side, and they're very much watching what's going on in the Great Lakes, and they're just looking at the legislation and the regulations that's being withdrawn, just one after the other lists of environmental safeguard type regulations being withdrawn, and it doesn't look well. It doesn't look good, right? For the Great Lakes, this is our shared water body, and it does not look good. So it's going to become hands on deck again to push back and get those regulations and rules put back into place at some point, because otherwise we're going to just slip back to where we were, 100 years ago, and we're going to have all these areas of concern all over again.
Well, this is what is concerning to me. And Sonia, you basically have encompassed this in your comment. My brother is a health and safety guy for a big company. He's been doing it for 30 years. He's leaving. He says nobody cares about health and safety anymore, and it's become more of a clerical position. They don't want him to raise issues. Just ignore them. This is what I'm, again, like I'm hoping it's not a trend, but this is what I'm afraid of, Lawrence, what Sonia's bringing up, because I will say, to a certain degree, And I don't want to get too much into the details of it, but I am starting to see a bit of a trend that we're more concerned about, where our next meal's coming from, where our next paycheck's coming from, how much more is the cost of living going to go up. There are things that are far more important to people right now than ever before. And, okay, be good to the environment, make sure we're not polluting the environment. If it's going to cost X number of dollars to take this amount of garbage to the dump, do I just scatter it in a farm field? Do I just pull up to any kind of exit on the highway and just dump it into the ditch? Like, this is the unfortunate concern I have is going forward is we don't have the brain trust. We don't have the mindset like we used to when it comes to conserving our environment. And with everything else that's going on that I just mentioned, my concern is it's only going to get worse.
I think there's room for hope. And I think whereas before we were naive, when rivers and canals were routinely catching fire and barrels of hazardous waste were being buried in metal barrels that, had maybe a 25-year lifespan before they'd crack open. We see they're still cleaning up the Agent Orange
right
at the factory there. I mean, this can go on forever. The cleanups can take forever. And but we didn't know, or we didn't know better. We didn't know better, and now we do. So there's no excuse anymore. And I think there's enough people out there that say, look, it's not a matter of educating the masses anymore. You try to get some grants, environmental grants, conservation grants from funding organizations, foundations, and it's not about educating people anymore. It's about doing, going out there and making sure things are cleaned up, making sure things are being done properly, actually showing that you're improving the environment. Never mind with the education, we've done that. We're done that. Now it's a matter of exercising what we know. So there's no more excuses.
I don't necessarily disagree. I think there's always a place for education, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, trying to fall back on the excuse, well, they didn't know or they weren't properly educated. Yeah, I completely agree. Well, you know what? For the sake of George, who we may have lost, who was hoping this was going to turn into a real feel-good story, let's try and turn this train around. And is there anything we can talk positively about that's going on in the news right now, Lawrence?
This is showing that the rules are working, that companies pay the price. We see this across Canada, whether it's the ship breaking yards on the West Coast and getting fined because they're not being careful when they take these old ships apart to make sure the chemicals aren't just being dumped onto the beaches. All across Canada, we're taking dams down. We're seeing the results of that. We're restoring habitat. There's lots of evidence that the things we're doing are paying off and that the fish numbers are coming back and things are getting better and better every year. There's lots of evidence of the results of our good work, and we should take pride and not let these stories remind us of why we do this, but not take us down and think it's all hopeless, because it's not hopeless. It's not hopeless. Sure, politically, we're having a little sort of 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing. And, there's people saying, it doesn't matter anymore. We got to just focus on jobs and jobs and jobs. That it's just a temporary thing. We'll get back into balance again and figure things, make sure we're doing it right, not just expediently. So I think we're in good shape. We're in good hands. And we've got a good government that, in terms of the rules that we have across Canada, that look after things. And, I was just on the call today with the organization of veterinarians and scientists across Canada. Many of them work in government and all levels of government. And it's just about health of aquatic animals. And now it got so big, over 1,000 members, that they split it into 2 groups. There's the aquatic group and there's the wild fish group. And they asked, we had to go around the table. I was on the aquatic one. And I said, I said, I do this, and I'm not sure if I should be on the aquatic one. We're more about wild fish. And, but I know there's viruses that, are being passed back and forth between wild fish and aquatic fish that are, being grown. And the chair said, no, you should stay because there is, we need to know about the issues on both sides. The only reason we split it into two groups is so, people who are very definitely into one group or the other could focus more on the topics, and it wouldn't be so the meetings were getting too long. But he said, for organizations like Bluefish Canada, there's a role there for you to be intermediating between the two groups. Are the wild fish being contaminated by the aquaculture industry, or vice versa? And we see this, diseases and viruses and so on being passed back and forth. So we're understanding more, and we're getting more aware of it. And yeah, they're starting to say, we have to be more aware. We're going to have to do something about this. But at least we're on top of it. I think, the more we know, maybe it's a little bit scary sometimes, but we're also doing things about it. It's a little scary when you find out. But once you find out, then you get over your bit of fear. Then you say, okay, what are we going to do about it? And you get everyone together and you start figuring out a plan.
Yeah. Well, good call. Good way to sort of end this. As I said, lots of great comments, Craig. I want to thank you for yours, Sonia, Steve, and a whole bunch of others that have piped it. We definitely have lots of room to be better. Yes, there are places like Craig's mentioning that have lots of garbage that the fishing is no longer allowed because of how we treated the area. The Ganny is a perfect example. You want a black guy on the angling community. The Ganaraska is that black guy. Unfortunately, we're all wearing that. So yes, we definitely need to be better. Lawrence, as always, my friend, I want to thank you for your time. Thanks for enlightening us. As Sonia says, thanks for bringing the numbers and all the facts, because we need that. And sometimes we see videos, we see posts that maybe are just trying to get our attention, but we'd like to know a little bit more. We'd like to know the brass facts. We're Lawrence does a great job making sure that we are in the know. So again, thanks so much for doing your part, Lawrence.
Well, thanks for giving me a chance, and thanks everyone for all the input you guys are sending me in messages and things like that. I really appreciate it. Then, we all got to be sharing this stuff and get this information flowing as quickly as we can. And so it gets into the hands of the right people. And there's a lot of right people out there. You're none of us are alone.
Amen. Have yourself a great week, buddy. Thanks again for your time.
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks,
it.
man.
Right on. We got Jay Barnucz coming up right after a word from his sponsor.
Want to know the difference between power bait and other soft plastics? Ask the fish. Berkeley scientists have. Thousands of flavors tested on thousands of fish. Natural. Man-made. Every bait that's ever hit the water. No matter the shape, size, or color, power bait is the only one that is scientifically proven. Fish bite and will not let go.
There he is, the one and only Jay Barnucz. How you doing, brother?
Hey, buddy.
I have an interesting path that I'm going to take with your segment. Something that we sort of do, we've touched on, but this is actually going to be the majority of your segment. But first and foremost, welcome back to the show. We missed you last week. Hope all is well as in the Barnucz family.
Yeah, things are going as good as they can. We talked before show. Stephanie has been feeling good recently, so she's going through a few things, but she's good. And a while ago too, I told you this. My grandmother, she's 92 now. She broke her hip. Yeah. She's recovering well. She's in a hospital, but so we just haven't been able to get away. There's been just too much going on. So I'm driving my mom to the hospital to visit with grandma and just back and forth. And so, we haven't been out ice fishing yet. I just haven't been able to, I got to be close to home, and the ice here, it's not safe yet. So we're just hanging tight. We're waiting, but it's coming. I was just outside and it feels great. That minus whatever it is. Even down here, it's minus 10. It'll be down minus 15 tonight. So if we get, and everything is so close to freeze it. In fact, even during the warm-up, we didn't lose ice, and some of the small ponds are probably were safe, and then things got a little warm. So it's not going to take long to fix up the small ponds and small reservoirs, and even the inner bay of Long Point here. There's an outfitter on the north side, an outfitter on the south side, and they're staged. They're ready. Like, they're getting calls. It's good to see everyone like anxious to go. It just makes me feel excited that everyone's just ready to get out. So yeah, all the local ice anglers here are really, really ready to go. It's exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
With that being said, what I have done is I've downloaded some videos. We're going to watch the video together, and then I have a question at the end of each video that I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to ask for your input. And folks, if you want to, comment along, by all means. But this is going to be something that we've done this before, but not to this extent. First and foremost, have a listen and watch this video. Listen very carefully at the very beginning of this video, because it also has a lot to do with the question I'm about to ask Jay.
Oh. This holy yep, that was right under me. I'm gonna move right away. Yep, I'm gonna move right away. Holy. Okay, gotta get out of here. Started to fill up with water now. It's flushing now. I'm gonna move to a new spot.
Okay, the obvious question. We hear lots of cracking and all kinds of noises when we're ice fishing. What and I really a tip of the hat to that angler. What sound? Is there a specific sound that the ice makes that would make you want to move that quickly?
You know what? So if that angler had safely checked the ice, so when you might hear ice anglers talk about the ice is talking, or the ice is loud today. And typically when you're out on the ice, when it's real cold and it's making ice, and it's just like when you put an ice cube in your drink and it cracks, like it's when it's making ice. And so as the ice expands, it causes cracks, and that's what forms pressure cracks. Pressure cracks are exactly that. You have pressure and it pushes, the ice sheets push against each other and it causes a crack. And sometimes those cracks will open up, and you got to be careful of that. In that situation, now I don't know how thick the ice is that individual's on. He's got a lot of gear. He's got a full sled. He's got a big hut. I would hope that he or she would have checked the ice where they were. If the ice is thick all around me and that happens, I'm not going to move too fast. I'm pretty confident that it will stay put. Now, I do get the concern though. Like I can't tell from that picture. It looks like there's some white ice there and there's a lot of snow on top.
Yeah.
That kind of makes me a little nervous. And even if you've been watching some of John White's videos the last few days, he was out with hot box huts and checking the ice. Hearing them describe the ice off their place. Now there's lots of ice there, and it's safe, but it didn't form well. There was a lot of white ice. There was a lot of like slush. Like the one video was great. Danny described like basically the slush. So there's layers, like ice will build up in layers, and that's what's been going on as we've been getting all this snow and caps, and it will freeze eventually, but also snow insulates, and that's what causes ice to be very unstable. And I think that in that situation, that's probably what's happening, is that he's on really thick ice, but it's not good ice.
Right.
And that's probably what's happened there. And he's got a lot of stuff. So there's a lot of weight on that ice too. So I know I don't like, well, one, I look at that slush and my legs hurt watching, looking at that slush. Like trying to walk on that is hard. So yeah, but I can tell you story. Even last winter, we were on good ice on the inner bay, and we crossed, went out, we fished, and then the girls came. Heather and Stephanie showed up at shore, and it was a nice day, man. It was -10, and the sun was out, and the wind was calm. Like just a beautiful day to ice fish. And we were a kilometer out, and the girls showed up. And when they got to the access, I said to the boys, I was with Trevor and a couple buddies, I said, I'm going to walk back and get the girls. And it was like glare ice. So I got my cleats, and I love when it's like that, because I'm just, you can make ground real fast. So I'm trucking back. And so it's about, 10-minute, 15-minute walk back. I get back, and all of a sudden the girls are like, how did you get over? And I'm like, I crossed over there, and it's all water now. Now that's not opened up, but what had happened was a pressure crack that was there in the morning had heaved. And so it had slipped under the other crack, and now the water was pooling on top of literally on top of the ice. So what was open water in the morning, I could step over it, like not even like, I'm going to say that much open water, like it's like narrower than my boot. Now it was a lake the size of my yard. And I'm like, it was not open, but the water had pooled on top of the ice. So I went back out. Now remember, it's cold. It's still a cold day. What had happened was a large crack happened. And when the crack happened, it pushed the ice, and I wasn't there, but Heather said it was like a geyser, like the two ice sheets buckled and the water shot up in the air. Like she says, it looked like something out of National Geographic, like out of a geyser. Now, needless to say, the girls are pretty worried about us at that point, because they're like, how the hell are you going to get back to shore? Now I had a few plans at play. I knew of other access points we could walk to, long walk, but we can get there. When we came off that night, and I didn't wait till dark. We left a little bit early. It was still twilight, and I have my cleats, and I have my spud, and I have my suit. And instead of us all walking out kind of wide and just talking and hanging out, I had all the boys line up behind me, and I didn't have a sled. I let the boys pull the sleds. I was just freewheeling with just my spud and my picks, and I worked my way back, and we had to find a safe place to cross. Where we crossed in the morning was no longer safe. I had to find a new place to cross. And we went about 300, 400 meters to the west, and I found a spot, checked it. There was a bit of water on top, but the ice was still good. Found it, pulled all the guys across, and we made it back fine. But you got to be prepared for that, especially when you're fishing on bigger lakes. And this is probably a warning to folks that fish on big lakes. We talk about getting lost out there and things like that, but be prepared when you come off the ice. If the ice conditions are maybe not the best, I would not advise. I don't like coming back in the dark when I'm a little worried about ice conditions, because usually if there's going to be an issue, it's usually at the shore or close to the shore, and that's where I get worried. It's getting off the ice safely. So yeah, that's something to definitely be aware of. Tell everyone, not like, again, we talk about all the safety gear that we bring, but having a good headlamp in that case, just to guide yourself across. But don't wait till it's dark. Like you and I have done this, but like you go on Quinny, and that's when the only time I'm actually nervous is when I'm walking back at night on Quinny. We fished till like an hour after dark. We probably have a kilometer walk back. It's normal to do that. We've checked the ice going out, but conditions can change during the day. Things can open up. So now I can't see what I'm walking on as clearly. So having a good headlamp, and everyone should have one, so that your hand's free when you're walking back, so that you can see what's ahead of you. And I still spud my way back, even though I spudded my way out. And I try to follow the same trail that I took going out, not just to get back to my access. Because if you can imagine, when you're walking back, Scotty, and you deviate a few degrees, next thing you know, you're a half a mile from your access point. Like I've done it. I've done it. Mm-hmm. So I try to get a bit of a landmark of where I'm going before I head back. But yeah, but the cracks can happen and things can open up. Things can change quickly out there. Even when the ice seems good, it can change quickly out there. So in that situation, I don't know. Again, I don't think it was that thin of ice, but it didn't look like it was very good ice. And that's one of the challenges you're going to have.
100%. And I will say to further your point, the only time I can recall ever being scared out on the ice was the Bay Quinte with no snow, and it got dark. And I mean dark, like where did the lights go dark? And you're now walking towards a parking lot that's not lit up, and all you see is darkness around you. Yeah, it is not. It's a very unsettling feeling. Something that I'm glad I did when I was young and stupid, because I don't think I could possibly do that again now.
Yeah, like usually what I try and do is when I'm on Quinte, like most of the access points aren't lit. So you park, everything's fine. There's no street lights there. So what I try and do is I as it's getting dark, I'm usually looking back to where I know I want to walk to, and I'm usually looking for a light that I can see after it's dark. And if I know, okay, I accessed here, and I know that there's a street light or a farm, there could be a light on the barn or something that let's say on 30 degrees over here, I know I got to head back. I don't want to head towards that light, but I want to keep my distance from that light to get to where I want to go. GPS is the best, of course, a handheld GPS. Phone GPS is good too, but when you're walking, like what's nice about a handheld GPS is it can handle the cold. That's the thing. Phones can't. And so I'm walking literally with my GPS like in front of me like this. So I'll make sure I'm staying on that right path. And sometimes people with your phone, if it gets cold, now you're screwed trying to get back off. So and Quinte's the scariest one, man, for me, because it's so unpredictable out there. I don't trust that place at all. Yeah. Like I know there's big fish there, but I don't spend enough time there to respect that place the way. So I'm a little scared of it, and I don't question the guys who spend tons of time there. Like if I had that kind of time to spend out there, I would learn it better, not just from a fishing standpoint, but from a safety standpoint. You kind of know what the ice is doing and where things are happening. But yeah, I don't spend enough time out there to network with guys either. And that's a big part of it too, is, and I stress this with people. Do not, if you're not familiar, if you don't do a lot of ice fishing, do not ice fish alone. Do not. Ice fishing is such a great way to spend time with friends anyways. It's one of the few times, because we're not all in a boat and we have multiple boats, we can actually go out as a group and fish together and hang out, which is amazing. And I think that's the way to do it. And I think that fishing alone on the ice, I've done it, but there's only certain places that I'll do it. And I just don't prefer fishing alone when I'm ice fishing. I like having someone else with me. I think that's the smart way to do it.
Gary's asked a great question. Is there a limit to how far you'd walk before you get to your spot?
Oh, Gary, yeah. So I'll tell you right now, my pulling gear, and I know my range. And I joke because I do this with kayak fishing too. So I'm a kilometer. I know I can go a kilometer if the conditions are decent. If it's really if it's glare ice and I'm like skating out there, I can go a little further. I find after about a kilometer, that's about where my body's like, all right, that's what I'm going to do. So what I do is I plan my fishing based on, here's my access. And I basically I do 1 kilometer radius from that point. And I'm like, okay, here's where I want to go. And that's about as far as I'll go, is about a kilometer, because I got to walk back at the end of the day. So it's not just walking out there, it's walking back. So you're 2 kilometers into your day. And so when I go out, even on Simcoe, to be honest, I enjoy fishing. Like when I go perch fishing, I don't like fishing at the bottom end of Cooks a whole lot because it's all very shallow. Let's say it's 20 feet or less. And a lot of my better luck in my life has come where I can fish like 15, 20, 25, 30, even 35 feet for perch. And so a lot of the access points I use is where I have like quick access to deep water. Does that make sense, Scotty?
Yeah,
so
100%.
So that deeper water, like I like to go towards the north end of Cooks Bay. I like areas like Jackson's Point area. I like Willow Beach areas. Those are all huge areas, of course, but I like those areas because I don't have to walk real far to get into that 30 plus feet of water. And then I can fish. I find that I need to find the right depth. And once I find the right depth, then I can just go along that depth. And what's cool about fishing, getting access to that deeper waters, even though I'm targeting perch, I've caught some incidental whitefish and some lake trout doing that too, which can be a lot of fun on perch tackle. But yeah, it's a kilometer. That's kind of what I like to do, because I realize that if I go further, it's just going to make for one hell of a long day.
Great segue into our next video. So take a break, take a load off. It's not long, but it's a new segment, so it's probably over a minute. But sure. It actually brings me to the next question that I have for you. But have a listen.
The man has reeled in a big catch.
When you get a big fish on it, you can tell right away, and it pulls out. It almost bailed.
Colin Legrand was ice fishing with a friend Monday at Sandy Bar Beach near Riverton. Legrand says they managed to snag a few walleyes before he felt the big bite and hauled in the mother load.
You can imagine this fish was a little over 45 inches long, and we're fishing out of an 8-inch hole. You know what I mean? So all of a sudden this fish, and believe it or not, this fish's head could barely make it in the hole.
Yikes. Legrand says the northern pike is the biggest fish he's ever caught. He estimates it's 25 to 30 years old. He loves the reaction he's gotten from friends and family ever since hauling it in, so much so he even submitted a photo to Manitoba's Master Angler Awards. As for the fish's fate, you may be happy to hear he let it go, meaning other fishers will also have a shot at this big one.
Cool stuff. Great story.
Yeah.
It brings me to the next question that you sort of touched on just before I played it. When it comes to the water body, or perhaps maybe the species within a lake, what size hole fits all fish? Do you fish with an 8-inch, depending on the target species, or based on the fact that you could have a giant like this come through the hole? Are you going up into the 10-inch size?
That's a good question. So prior to having a power auger, which I use a K drill now, I used to do everything by hand, right? So I had fin bores, and I had 3 fin bore augers. I had the 4.5, the 6, and the 8. And I probably used the 6-inch most of the time. I found the 6-inch, when you're doing it by hand, this is by hand, the 6-inch was the nice balance between, I'm not going to tire myself out totally, and I can still fit, a decent sized fish through the hole. Now, a 6-inch auger, 6-inch hole, like I was usually targeting crappie. A 4.5-inch hole is too small for a big crappie. So 6-inch, but even then you got to be careful. The 8-inch was what I used for walleye and northern pike and lake trout. And you can get a pretty big fish through an 8-inch hole. The challenge is you still have to take your time and be patient, and basically steer that fish up that hole. It doesn't quite fit. My biggest walleye was a 13-14 in Quinny, and I pulled it through an 8-inch hole, and I just it took me longer to get it through the hole than it took me to reel it in.
I believe it.
It's right there, and I didn't hurt it. I just had to get it lined up and took my time. I was by myself. I had buddies nearby, but they were, I remember it being real nasty weather, man. We were at Deserano, and it was like a big snow squall. And I was out there in the open fishing, and this thing comes to the hole, and I'm like, oh my God. And I turned it, I got it up. It took me a long time. And what you're going to find is with a lot of people, getting a big fish to the hole, that's usually where you're going to lose it, because you got to take your time. So the bigger the hole, the better. But the bigger the hole too, people lose stuff down those bigger holes. So I always tell people too, things fit easier down the hole as well as they do coming up the hole. So be aware of that. If I was fishing all the time for big walleye and big northern pike and big lake trout, I would run a 10-inch auger. I would run a 10-inch auger if that was what I was doing all the time. 8 inches probably. So I'm running a K drill 8.5-inch, and I like that for everything. It's a big enough hole that I can pull a big fish through it. But also too, when I'm running like a flasher and I got my transducer dangling, I can push it off to the side. It's not going to get in my way. When I was using the 6-inch and especially the 4.5-inch holes, I was drilling separate holes, one for my transducer and one to fish out of. My favorite setup, Scotty, in the fin bore 4.5, and to this day with fresh blades, I can still probably outcut most power augers with that 4.5-inch.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah,
you're talking that much. But for even a big perch will fit through there. And I would drill 3 holes like side by side. I would drill like a hole here, and a hole in the middle. The middle hole was for the transducer, and I would fish in these 2 holes, and I would just pop 3 holes all the time. That's always what I did. And I did that for years fishing Simcoe with a 4.5-inch, and you'd be surprised how big a fish you can fit through that little hole. But the 6 inches is, if you're going for a lot of panfish and perch, 6 inches lots. But once you go anything bigger, you got to have an 8 or bigger for sure.
100%. And I do agree with Mike, who says, you know, it depends on whether you're keeping the fish and whether you're wanting to release it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. It's definitely a lot easier to release folks or fish in a larger hole, no doubt about that. But yeah, I mean, based on the fishery and the lake and the target species that you're targeting that day, yeah, make sure that you know, the hole fits. If it doesn't fit, you must quit.
I think for probably 90% of anglers in Ontario, in Southern Ontario, an 8-inch hole is plenty big for what you're going to catch. You can, like, again, I've pulled it, and pike are narrow. Even a big pike is narrower than a big walleye, right? Because they're so long. So they'll fit through an 8-inch hole. Walleye get pretty fat. Lake trout get pretty fat. Get a big one through an 8-inch hole. You can do it. Just be patient, and have a buddy who doesn't mind getting their arm wet. That's what I like. I remember teaching Trevor at an early age, like, you're sticking your arm down that hole and you don't touch the line, but you try to pin the fish against the side of the hole and then secure it. And then you can either one, you know, if it's something like a big perch or a crappie, you can lip it. If it's a pike or a walleye, you can just carefully put your finger underneath of its gill plate and lift it up, but pin it first, get a grip on it. Don't try and grab that gill plate when that fish isn't secured. Because if that fish still moves, like ice is jagged on line. You could, a lot of big fish. And the other one too, I'll leave this as a tip. I learned from an old timer a long time ago, don't use stinger hooks for big quinty walleye. Just take your jigging spoons, and if it comes with a 4/0, like a size 4 treble, maybe go to a 2 or a 1/0, go up a size in the treble. Don't bother with a stinger hook, because the stinger hook is just dangling, and it guaranteed it's going to get caught on the edge of the ice. So you're trying to get it up there, and 9 times out of 10, those walleye are actually on the main treble when they grab it, and then you will but have good trebles. Don't chintz on your treble hooks. Like, have good trebles, keep them sharp, and go up a size if you need to for those bigger walleye and bigger pike. But I find that stinger hooks, especially on a jigging rod, man, you're just going to get yourself in trouble when those stingers get caught on the bottom of the ice. And it's hard. Those little tiny trebles get stuck, and then now you can't break that. You can't break that easily. So you're in for a heap of trouble if you get that stuck.
Dude, you're nailing it when it comes to segues to the next video. I absolutely on par. I'm telling you, it was almost like we talked about this. George, this is a great rule of thumb based on geography. South of Highway 7, 4-inch south of North Bay, Highway 7, 6-inch north of North Bay, and then 10-inch hole. I would say.
I don't want to talk about George's hole at all. If anyone wants to be honest.
Okay. On that note, you talked about stinger hooks. Well,
yes.
This is a video that I saw that I have never seen before. I want to hear your take. I want to hear everybody's take, because to me, this is exactly the presentation that I am going to be building this year in the soft water world. But I do believe that it would work well in the hard water as well.
setup often used by professionals in competitions, especially when fishing heavy grass and thick vegetation, where fish are cautious and often strike without committing, leaving you with missed bites or torn soft baits. And that's exactly where this jig head rig with 2 hooks makes a real difference, increasing hookup ratio, keeping the soft bait effective, and giving you more control and confidence on every cast, because small details like this are often what separate a pro from an average angler.
Have you ever seen anything like that?
No, I don't think so.
Buddy, that looks money to me. Absolute freaking money. I've never seen a stinger hook like this.
Play that again.
To me, this is money in the bank. Feather that through, yeah. Spin it around, okay, yeah. That's money. That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's pretty slick. Like, one thing about swim baits like that. So one of my biggest pet peeves, and you have to spend time with swim baits to get this right, is you need to make sure that for the bait that you have the appropriate length of shank on your hook.
Agreed.
Because a lot of times, so on that bait there, it's got a pretty fat belly on it, right?
Yep.
So that first hook that they're using is got a pretty short shank. If you just use that short hook, it's going to go through the fat part of the swim bait, and that there's a lot of plastic on that hook, right?
Yeah.
So by adding that second hook, you're increasing your chances of a hook up there for sure. The only workaround with that is that you got to find a jig head with a longer shank. But honestly, I find that most jig heads are a little too short on the shank for a good swim bait. Now, a shorter shank hook will give your swim bait more action, but if those fish are coming up behind it, they may not get to the hook. So that's a good little cheat code, especially if fish are biting short. That's pretty cool, man. That's smart.
I think this is absolute money, and I'll be honest, I can't wait to try it. Judging by the soft plastics that we have nowadays, I can't imagine that a hook inside like that is going to impede how it swims, how it reacts. I'd like to say that the soft plastics that we're dealing with now are still going to be able to swim and have an effective presentation for whatever target species you're looking for. But I love how everything just disappears into the plastic. There's something to be said when you're able to disguise the hook. And really, I mean, at the end of the day, isn't this what we're talking about when it comes to catching fish? Making sure that we're able to disguise whatever it is that we're feeding the fish into something that they want to bite. That's a perfect example. And
it's a real balance to get the bait to give it the action that it was designed to do. Now, there are some companies now that are designing hooks that pair up with their bait specifically, right? And Berkley makes a bunch that, their hook shank. And actually, what's cool about Berkley packages, if you buy Berkley baits, it'll tell you the hook on the package that it recommends for it. And I think that's really smart. And more companies are starting to do that now, because that's one of the trade-offs is I have a bait, and it doesn't even have to be a swim bait. It could be a crawfish or a soft jerk bait. What hook do you use? And instead of having to figure that out, you can just pick up the package. This is the bait I want to use. This is the appropriate hook. And but this here, this angler likes that swim bait, and that first hook is just too short of a shank. So you add it, and it still has good action. Smart. That's smart.
Absolutely brilliant. Now, you are not just someone that we would consider a guru out on the hard water. You've got a thing or two and a knack for soft water. One of our CFNers went down to the river in hopes that he was going to catch or at least make a few casts. But he came across fast-moving water. And I want you to watch this video. And I have an interesting question right after we're done.
I can't believe how high it is. It's super high right now, super gnarly and super fast. Tried fishing it, didn't go. Always use your river app. Do your river app. I read it. I thought might as well come out and try. I caught fish in high water before. Not today.
Kyle Petrie, he is the one that is speaking in that video. I have to ask, how would you fish that water?
Well, it depends. So there's the river rat. That's the Grand River over the last week. So typically the Grand River is there's actually a cool feature on the river app. There's a dotted line there. Okay. So that dotted line will tell me what the flow is normally like. So the dotted line tells me that it's this time of year is around 80 CMS, 80 cubic meters per second. And on Saturday, January 3rd, it hit 538 cubic meters per second. So it was almost 20 times what it should be for this time of year, which is amazing. You know what, for that, man, so when you're fishing high water like that, it's a combination of two things. One, well, first of all, fish will not sit in the fast water. They will move out. And when the water's like that, quite often some of the best fishing you'll have is at your feet, not making long casts. You know, if you were there at that spot the week before and you caught some fish out in that run, they're probably not there. They've moved away from that fast water. They've tucked out of the way where they can. Now, and especially if you don't have any large boulders or large obstructions, they'll move right against the shore. And so you can find any little seams, basically where the river first drops into the channel, that's where they'll be. So yeah, and then in terms of presentation, you're going to want to use, you're probably going to want to go a little bigger and a little brighter from what you normally use. So, you know, that looks a lot like when we fish the Thames River in the spring for walleye. And until I saw the hashtag there, Grand River, it looked like the Thames. That's what I was thinking. And I know the Thames, we had a conversation in this house last week during that warm weather, and we almost made the trip to London to go fish the Thames for walleye because it is open until March 15th. And because we were like, this ice fishing thing's not happening right now. We're getting a little stir crazy. And it almost happened. And the river was actually at a good level. So when the Thames gets, so in the Grand where that video was taken, 80 CMS is about the normal this time of year. So anything at that or below would be considered low. And that's good. That's what you want. So the water's clear, fish can see your bait. And the conditions on the Thames was high, but not that high. And it was dropping. And we were going to go. And what do we use for the walleye in the spring? Because even in the spring, clear water in March is not like clear water in June or July.
Very true.
And we always love using chartreuse baits, like something chartreuse or white. White stands out well too in that dirty water, believe it or not. But something chartreuse or orange works really well, and that's what I'd be using there. So if this gentleman was targeting walleye, that's exactly what I'd be using as a bright color. And you got to slow down. You got to slow down to let those fish see your bait. So, and be patient.
I think the key too in that fast moving water is the pause. I think, you know, when you're doing your retrieve in those kind of situations, that pause is crucial, especially if you're able to find some slack water. You definitely want to pause it in that slack water, and don't be too anxious to move it again. Sometimes longer pause can increase your strike rates by, you know, exponentially.
There's some really river guys who know what they're doing are pretty. I love watching steelheaders pick apart a good run.
Yeah. And
you know, one thing I try and tell people is, you know, when you're fishing a spot like that, you sort of need to fish all of it. And so like there's a couple spots on Big Creek here in town that when the river swings around and it goes along the outside bend, everyone just wants to, because there's some logs on the outside bend, they want to just drift their baits past the logs. And sure, there's fish hanging by those logs. But a lot of times you're at the edge of the pool and that water comes in the pool. It doesn't go straight to the logs. It's a sheet of water coming through. And the logs are over here on the outside. But a lot of times there's an inside lip that comes down off the pool. And there's usually a little bit of a shelf there. And a lot of times fish will sit just on that shelf, especially when the water is a little bit higher and the color's a little dirtier, and they're safe there. And they're not touched because everyone's casting across the river. No one's fishing on the inside of that pool. They all fish the outside of the pool. And you got to make sure you put some drifts, and this is the same for spring walleye. You got to get some drifts on that inside because they're resting on that inside. So they're working their way upriver, and they've hit this ledge, and they're resting on that ledge. And then you just have to get your bait over that ledge. So sometimes it means I'm not casting. I'm just pitching my bait maybe 3 or 4 rod lengths from where I'm standing, as opposed to casting 20 rod lengths across the river, right? So,
yeah. Great stuff. All right, we have one more video, Jay. One more video, and then we're done this barrage of questions. Have a look. I don't even remember what this video is.
Ice in the guides, and after testing several different solutions, we came up with what we have today. It's super easy to use. We recommend that you use the applicator to apply it to the spool of line and the guides a few hours before fishing. Now, this product will not totally eliminate icing. Nothing's 100% bulletproof, but it will definitely increase the amount of time you're able to spend in the water. It works well on most monofilament and extremely well on braid. It is eco-friendly, unscented, and will not hurt your fishing gear. Several Michigan guides have been using this product for years, and we've had nothing but positive feedback. Steve and Ed's Nice can be found exclusively at slamesteel.com, but look for it soon at your nearest bait shop. Give it a try.
So my question was, would you use that, or is there a home remedy that you would prefer to use?
Dude, I literally saw that video last night, and you know when you're looking at videos and then you accidentally swipe and then you're like, where'd that video go? Yeah. And then I can't find it again because I wanted to send it to you because I'm like, this is pretty slick. Because okay, so I've experimented with I've used Vaseline. I've used I've even used like, so I don't want George to see this, but like nail polish remover. I use that. So and like just it's basically, it's got a little bit of acetone in it, which helps now. And so I don't usually put it on my spool though, because I'm a little concerned about that, but I'll put it on my guides. And, you know, I will often, like, I can remember steelheading in university where we would go out into Coburg and Ganaraska and it's minus 15 out, minus 20. And we would put a dab of Vaseline on every guide on our float rods. And it would last for a while, but then you'd have to get some, like, when you're steelheading, by the way, you don't take your ice out of your guide. You just take your rod and smack your buddy beside you on the head with the tip, and you say, clear out my guides. But I like how they're applying it on the spool itself. I'd like to know what the active ingredient is. I'm going to guess it's probably nail polish remover. That's what I'm guessing it is. But yeah, it's, I checked the website. I was tempted, man. I was tempted because it's a smart thing to do. Not just for ice fishing, but even doing like steelheading and that spring walleye fishing, man. Like just because I'm doing a lot of casting and retrieving. Even like with steelheading, I'm casting and retrieving, but I'm not with walleye. I'm casting those swim baits and I'm steady retrieve. So ice builds up a lot quicker because I'm moving a lot more water, right? So. Now I will say this, it does, if you're going to fish in the winter for like walleye or that type of fishing where you're chucking lures, it really helps to use a line that really sheds water well. Yeah. And I can't say enough, and I know I'm tooting the horn here, but I've been using it for 25 years. Berkley Fire Line, man. That fire line sheds water really well. It doesn't ice up like other braids. So like I have other Berkley braids back here. I have spider wire. Those ones are great braids. They do not work well in the winter. Water will stick to them. Water adheres to them when it's cold. but Fireline, you will not get as much ice up on Fireline. And for the most part, Berkley Fireline ice, you buy the little ice fishing spools. For the most part, the coating and the braid itself is the same, whether you're buying the little pony spool for ice fishing or the big spool for regular fishing. So just get yourself some Fireline. It's a great braid, whether it be in the winter or all year round. And it works. It's thing about Fireline too, and I'll tell folks this. It's so thin though, it doesn't work well on a bait caster. You got to pretty much use it on a spinning rod. But yeah, it's fantastic in the ice for sure.
Agreed. Richard, I would have to say that we're probably not too far away from that technology making it into our ice fishing repertoire. I think it's, we have it with gloves, we have it with boots and garments and everything else. A heated fishing rod, it doesn't seem so crazy to think about. It really doesn't.
No, it doesn't. It's I'm sure someone out there is thinking of it, because now with technology now, what would it take to run a small electrical current through a rod somehow, just to cause ice not to build up on your guides? Let's be honest. It's got to happen out there. I'm curious why no one's done it yet.
No kidding. George, George is back. Just in case you were worried, George is back. He would suggest that the product can't be that good, otherwise Berkley would have knocked it off by now. Welcome back, George.
The only drawback for a lot of the products that, and I'm going to say this for a lot of companies, they're not in the ice fishing cold weather business as much as a lot of their products are sold in climates that don't freeze. Make sense? So a lot of products are developed that they don't have to worry about ice as much. So we have to, us that ice fish or fish through the winter, we have to just learn to adapt, because a lot of the products out there are not made. I tell some of the Berkley product developers how I use their baits during the winter time, and they're shocked. And I've been very fortunate. A lot of times when new baits come out, I get to test them before they're on the shelf and give feedback, because they know I'm going to use it under really awful conditions at certain times of the year. And so they're and it's kind of neat. I don't know what they're testing. I'll get a couple of spools of line, and it's usually line that I'm testing for them, and it's unmarked. It's a spool 1, spool 2, spool 3, and I spool up and I go out and I test it, and then I do a questionnaire. And a lot of it's been because they know that I'm going to test it, and they know I fish in winter. That's why I get to do it.
It's awesome. Gary, now we're thinking. I love the creativity of our community. Yeah, absolutely. I can see it too. I can totally see it. Mike, you bring up a great point. At the end of the day, it might have something to do, or it might cause unnecessary damage and integrity to the rod. It's possible. I mean, if the entire cable runs the length of the blank, I could see it having some effect on the integrity. But if it was just something that was basically pinpointed for the guides themselves,
I think the rod itself, I don't think a heated rod would be I'm not going to buy that rod and expect it to be a Fenwick world-class rod. I expect it to be more consistency, like an ugly stick.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And and I love ugly sticks. I use a lot of them all the time. You do not, ugly sticks to me for ice fishing, especially as a tip up rod. If you want a cheap tip up rod that you can put outdoors, and because the tip is so limber on it, they're great, and they don't break. They can handle getting banged around in a sled. And I think that kind of rod, because the all rods are hollow, but in an ugly stick blank, they're thick enough blank that you could probably run wires up there and do that. I bet you could do that with an ugly stick.
Something to think about. Certainly the future. It'd be interesting to see what the future holds.
Heated rod grips. Well, now my wife would love that. She would love to do your podcast.
Absolutely.
Good idea.
Jay, before we let you go, is there anything else that you wanted to mention from the
No,
real
man,
angle?
we're good. We're good.
Okay.
I just need ice, man. I need ice. I got an 18-year-old upstairs who's he hasn't been out fishing for dude, we haven't been out fishing since New Year's Eve. It's been almost 3 weeks, but we're almost turned the corner. I guess I do have a couple small updates. So I'll be at the spring fishing show this year. So pure fishing, we're not having a booth. We did have a booth last year, but I'll be there helping out some of the vendors and helping out with that way. And Trevor will be there too. Trevor got invited. And then I just submitted my seminar theme for the Toronto Sportsman Show. So the Fish TV guys, Leo and Jason, they're gonna have their stage and their tank. So I'll be doing a daily seminar at the Toronto Sportsman Show. It's coming up fast, man. Spring fishing show is 2 weeks away. 2 weeks.
I know. It's crazy.
So are you doing a booth this year, Scotty? What are you doing at the show this year?
Oh no, unfortunately OFC Nation, unfortunately, there was something that happened. It was tragic, but we're over it now. But unfortunately, all of our garments, all of our swag, were lost in a fire, and in order to replenish all that, we just don't have the time. So, needless to say, we will be working on it in hopes that we'll have it available for CanCast. But again, fingers crossed. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But as of right now, the two shows that we are going to be at are the Ottawa show and, of course, the Toronto Sportsman show. But I definitely would hope that I'd like to put in an appearance at CanCast and of course, the Spring Fishing and Boat Show. But
yeah,
we will be there in some way, some fashion.
I just hope the weather does not do what it did last year for the Spring Fishing Show. Like, that was probably the biggest snowstorm that Toronto's seen in a decade, and it happened to be on that weekend. And
100%.
And I didn't mind the snow. It is what it is. I can handle the weather, but no one came. It was just a tough weekend. I felt bad for the vendors. I'm just happy to give it another shot, and I hope it works out really well. So, but and it's also, I hate to say it, but I'm really happy it's not on Family Day weekend, right? So, like, it's nice spreading that out a little bit, and so yeah, so we got some great events coming up, including Family Day, which is only a month away. So,
amen. Very true.
Right.
And this unfortunately marks the end for me of football season. I know we still have a few AFC division and NFC division to go, plus the Super Bowl. But for me, as you know, I love my college football, and tonight is the night. It is the national championship being played by Indianapolis versus Miami. All I can say is I'm a Big Ten lover, and I think this is a Cinderella year for the Hoosiers. And in closing, I will say, Hoosiers, baby.
Dude,
hopefully they pull it off.
Trevor's over at his buddies. They're watching that game right now. And
$10,000, Jay. $10,000 was a ticket to get into this.
Really?
$10,000 for an average seat, not right up front, the front row, not in the nosebleed section. An average seat was going for $10,000.
I have to admit, man, the last few years, like, I'm not a big football guy, but I like watching football between, like, when baseball ends and before hockey playoffs. Like, I kind of enjoy that. NFL is just, wow, the Bills are out, so that's kind of sucks. And but I watched most of the games this weekend. I was not happy with some of that calls, man. And I hate to be I'm not a conspiracist, but damn, those were some really crappy calls. There's got to be a better way. And to have seasons end, and it's not just the Bills that happened in the Bears game. That sucks, man. That sucks to end the season that way. Now, I will end on this, and I do love my Josh Allen. That was a terrible game for Josh Allen.
Yep.
And I said to Trevor, that one play at the end that got called should have been not called that way. The Bills made bad plays many times during that game prior to that. So the fact they lost, they'd already lost that game to me. already. If they would have won, great, but yeah, that's just how it goes. So, and I will, before I sign off, I will give a shout out here. Yes, Sonia, I'm really happy Darren set you up. So if folks that don't know, Darren Azumi, Bob's son, is like the warehouse manager, grand poobah for Pier Fishing in Burlington. And he got wind, I believe, through Alicia. Alicia helped connect Sonia and Darren replaced Sonia's broken Fenwick ice fishing rod. So beautiful. Darren is an absolute gem of a guy. So I am not surprised that he helped you out. I love that guy a lot. And I hope he's I hope I see him at the spring fishing show, if not the sportsman show. I just love seeing him. I miss hanging out with the Azumis, man. They're just good people. And Darren's a great guy. So shout out to Darren.
Amen. George, you summed it up best. It is the end of football, but the start of tackle buying season.
Amen. Yeah. There's some great stuff coming out. Stop sending me pictures of swim baits, George. I keep sending them. I send them to my son. And he's not going to be able to afford to go to university when he keeps sending him those high-end swim baits.
Amen.
All right.
Jay, have yourself a great week. Thanks again for your time, buddy. Give our best.
We'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Take care. Peace. Well, there it is, the end of our show. Thanks so much, folks, for joining us here on a Monday. Really appreciated all of the interaction, all the comments, and all the positivity. Again, this is what we try to do. We try to create an environment where it's conducive for learning. It's conducive that if you have a question, raise it. If you have something that you want to say, put it in the comments. We don't want to deter anyone or anything. If it's something that we deem necessary to talk about, put it in the comments. We'll make that decision. If we don't, please don't take offense to it. It perhaps just did not go with whatever it was that we were discussing, or perhaps it was something that was a little too controversial. Again, we don't mind getting a little controversial here. We have Lawrence here that brings that aspect each and every week, and we appreciate him doing so. It certainly makes us think. But on that note, as I said, it is national championship time for me, and I can't wait to go down and see the last remaining college football game. So I will bid you all farewell. Enjoy your week. Have yourselves a fantastic fishing. If you are getting out and enjoying the hard water, make sure you do so. If you take a picture, share it with CFN. We'd love to make an edit for you. And if it is your first fish of 2026, make sure you look for the post. Put it in the comments for a chance to win a really cool prize. Love you all. Take care. Enjoy the week. Dave, take us away. Peace.
Well, as much as I hate to admit it, I guess we've run out of time. So I've enjoyed it, but I'm going to do something I haven't done since season 1. Turn out the lights. The party's over. They say that all good things must end.